Daredevil Born Again Season 2 just finished releasing, so it's time for me to give my review on the season. Keep in mind, there will be spoilers, and a lot of crazy things happen in this season, so if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, go watch the season first and then come back here. Alright, with that out of the way, let's start at the beginning with the Northern Star. This is the first episode of the season and our first glimpse of New York after Season 1. It does feel a bit slow and dull, and it is the worst episode of the season, but that's because it's used to update the viewers on what's been going on, so it's fine. I thought the Northern Star sequence was okay, but I thought the fight at the end was really cool. For episodes 2 and 3, not really much of note happens. I did enjoy these episodes, but I don't really have much to say about them. The Resistance just kinda does Resistance things, like breaking out all of the task force hostages after Jack's trial, but these first 3 episodes are really just gearing us up for the rest of the season by slow burning us into it. Alright, now we've reached episode 4, where things really start to get going for this season. It opens with an awesome sequence of Dex killing a bunch of task force agents while New York State of Mind is playing in the background. I thought this sequence was so cool, and I loved getting to see all the action here with Dex just going absolutely insane on these guys and telling a random person in the diner,
"I'm one of the good guys."
It's actually crazy to me that Dex thinks he can just turn into a hero just like that, but I would describe him as more of an anti-villain. And related to this, Dex has this whole one good deed to balance the scales arc throughout the season, which he tries to achieve by doing one thing, which I'll talk about in a second. And I thought this was a really interesting side of Bullseye to see. It genuinely made his character really engaging this season, and it was cool to see him in action. That being said, please don't let him join the new Avengers. Alright, let's get back to talking about episode 4. This episode culminates with a boxing match between Fisk and some pro boxer at Fogwell's gym from the original Daredevil series, which the front half of the season have been building towards, kind of marking this episode as a mid-season finale. I mean, it is exactly halfway through the season after all. Anyway, the fight itself went pretty much as expected, with Fisk absolutely beating the crap out of the boxer he was fighting. I thought it was kinda cool, but nothing really special. The real moment here, though, is that it's revealed that Fisk set the fight up as a trap for Bullseye, and Fisk didn't want Vanessa, his wife, to come because of it, but he decided not to tell her why. So, Vanessa surprises him by showing up after meeting with the governor of New York, where the governor tells Vanessa that she'll only support Fisk because Vanessa is with him. Anyway, Bullseye pulls up to the boxing match with the intent of killing Fisk. During the ensuing fight, he kills some task force officers, and eventually Daredevil shows up and they have a cool fight. When Dex tries to kill Fisk, he throws a glass object at him, which Fisk deflects and breaks with the boxing belt thing that he won in the match, and one of the pieces of glass goes straight into Vanessa's head. When this happened, my jaw absolutely dropped. I felt an amount of shock equivalent to when Foggy died in episode 1. I was not expecting this at all. It was such a crazy twist. I just love it when a show does something completely unexpected that really changes the direction of the plot, and this is a moment that absolutely qualifies for that. And as Daredevil and Bullseye leave Fogwell's gym, we get our cameo of the Watcher in the broken window. Now, this was absolutely unintentional, but it has been retroactively canonized, like how the little boy in Iron Man 2 being Peter Parker was retroactively canonized, and I think that this cameo is so cool. I actually enjoyed What If. I mean, it absolutely had its problems, especially in the later seasons, but I did really enjoy the show, so it was really cool to see this cameo here. And the cameo actually fits too, because the Watcher only shows up during important moments, and this is the moment that changes the entire season. Moving into episode 5, I can fully say that this was an absolutely amazing episode, and that at this point in the season, it was easily my favorite. This is the flashback episode, with all of the flashbacks making it feel like season 1, episode 0 of Netflix Daredevil. In this episode, we got both Foggy and James Wesley back, and even Buck manages to show up in the flashbacks. I genuinely love these flashbacks so much, and it was an awesome feeling with kind of being able to watch Netflix Daredevil again and having Foggy and Wesley back. In the flashbacks, we get insight onto some of the basis of Matt's morals, where Matt and Foggy get Foggy's old neighbor Ray, who used to bully him as a kid, as a client. Ray tells them that he's going to be murdered the second he is either sentenced or freed. At the time, they're still working at Landman and Zach, and are forced to go through all of the case info to give it to Ray's defender for his trial. Foggy discovers that the address on Ray's warrant is wrong, making all of the evidence unusable. Matt and Foggy have a bit of an argument about whether or not it's right to free Ray from jail, both concerning his crimes and impending assassination. I really like this entire sequence with it showing Foggy's morals well and giving us some classic Matt and Foggy banter, along with the inclusion of some jokes involving Matt and Foggy's current positions at Landman and Zach. Anyway, it's revealed that Fisk is the one trying to have Ray assassinated, and Wesley, returning after 11 years after being killed by Karen in Daredevil Season 1, hires Buck, Fisk's current right-hand man after Wesley, to do it. And the inclusion of Buck in these flashbacks was really weird and was the obvious bridge between them and Born Again, but I was honestly fine with it. So, Matt and Foggy decide to free Ray, and eventually Foggy actually gives Ray his and Matt's fund to start their own law firm so he can run away and start new life. We see Matt find Foggy at Ray's building, and Foggy tells him that the Murdoch and Nelson Fund isn't just for them, and that it's meant to help everyone. This was such a sweet moment, and being inspired by Foggy, Matt suggests that their law firm should be called Nelson and Murdoch instead, and they go out to celebrate. We also see Buck show up to kill Ray, just missing him, and I just have to point out that the way he goes
"Delivery"
in his American accent was so silly, and I loved it. This episode also gives us more insight as to how Wilson Fisk and Vanessa met, with Wesley suggesting using the art gallery she works at as a front, and Vanessa fighting to get the painting that Fisk would eventually buy to be put up in the gallery, eventually going behind her boss's back to do it. But these parts are really more important to the parts of the episode that take place in the present, so I'll talk about them then. Anyway, I really felt like Foggy was the main character of this episode, which was just so awesome. It was really cool to get these flashbacks, and it was crazy seeing the immediate comparison of just how wildly different Netflix Daredevil and Daredevil Born Again are, despite them being in the same universe and having a lot of the same characters. I really wish we could really have something like Daredevil Season 1 again, but I know it's not possible, so it was nice to get to live that fantasy through this episode. Genuinely, I would be fine with Daredevil fighting the Hand again if they brought Foggy back. I didn't like the Hand in Daredevil Season 2 and didn't want them to come back, but they're already coming back in Spider-Man Brand New Day, so the door is open. As for the parts of the episode that take place in the present, this episode is really just your typical aftermath of a major event episode. We see Matt and Dex hide out in a church from the task force, and Matt is inspired by Foggy's actions in the flashbacks to save Dex's life. We see Buck take Daniel all the way upstate to Albany, absolutely freaking out Daniel with him thinking that Buck is going to kill him for constantly accidentally leaking stuff to BB, but they actually buried the body of Christophe, the first mate on the Northern Star, and Daniel was really introduced into Fisk's corrupted world here. We see Fisk and Vanessa in the hospital, with the flashbacks telling the story of how they met, as we ultimately see Vanessa die in front of Fisk after briefly talking to him. These segments just really felt like a normal episode of the show, except for the moments in the hospital, which really managed to bring out the emotion in Fisk, and actually makes you feel a bit bad for him. And I really enjoyed seeing this phenomenal acting from Vincent D'Onofrio here. Alright, on to episode 6, which marks the return of Jessica Jones after we last saw her 7 years ago. This episode opens with her fighting a bunch of guys sent by Mr. Charles, a very mysterious guy who was helping Fisk earlier in the season, but flips on him in this episode. Mr. Charles wants Jessica because she turned down an offer to work for him, and it's later revealed that Luke Cage accepted this offer, and also, Jessica and Luke Cage had a daughter together. That was shocking. I loved seeing Jessica Jones come back, and I feel like this is just a recurring feeling throughout the season with various characters returning from the Netflix shows. This episode also shows Fisk mourning Vanessa's death, and Daniel and BB going to Daniel's childhood home in Staten Island for his birthday, where Daniel discovers that BB is running City Without Fear, the leading anti-Fisk media in New York. There's also a fight between Matt and Karen in this episode, where Karen argues that Dex and Fisk should both be killed, with Dex even encouraging her to do it. And Karen calls out Matt on his no-kill rule, eventually leaving. And Karen's right. Matt's no-kill rule is stupid. I get not killing random task force agents, but killing Fisk would prevent many more deaths, and is absolutely not stooping to his level. That being said, Matt saving Dex's life actually did end up working out for him. After Karen leaves, she goes to a massive protest outside of City Hall where she ends up getting arrested. Overall, I think this episode was a decent drop in quality from the previous one, but was still better than the first 3 episodes. Now we've reached episode 7, the penultimate episode of the season. This was a pretty cool episode. It starts with Jessica Jones confronting Mr. Charles about him sending those guys to kidnap her, where we learn that Fisk is having the governor of New York assassinated. Jessica tells Matt, who gets Bullseye to save her as his one good deed. I thought this was a good ending to Bullseye's whole one good deed thing, while also providing the natural thing of Fisk trying to kill the person trying to remove his power. Anyway, after Karen's arrest, we see her in prison, and Brett Mahoney returns from Netflix Daredevil to let Matt see her. It was so awesome seeing Brett return. We also see Heather, who I absolutely hate, give her psych eval on Karen, where she ends up slapping Karen. Eventually, Karen's trial starts, with Kirsten McDuffie representing her, and Matt comes out of hiding to represent her with Kirsten, which I was not expecting at all, but it was awesome to see Matt do some actual lawyering this season that wasn't just in flashbacks. And when they leave the courthouse, they're attacked by the task force as expected, and Matt gets shot in the leg. Anyway, Daniel and BB deal with the fallout of her running City Without Fear, with him initially kidnapping her and planning to turn her into Buck, but he changes his mind at the last second and saves her life, which made me happy. I was really shocked that Daniel was actually about to turn her in. Then, Daniel confronts Buck, and as a result, Buck kills Daniel. This made me really sad, as Daniel was the only person who supported Fisk that I actually liked. I guess Sheila's okay too, but she only really supports the office of the mayor, and also she was massively sidelined this season, and I forgot she existed until the finale, despite the fact that she becomes the next mayor, which we know from the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer, yet that's not even mentioned at all in this series. And that brings us to episode 8, the final and best episode of this season. We see Karen's trial continue, and Matt and Kirsten weirdly decide to call Fisk as a witness. I was genuinely shocked by this decision, but seeing how it played out, it made a lot of sense. After a lot of back and forth between Matt and Fisk and some inspiration from Fisk threatening to ruin his life, Matt decides to reveal his identity as Daredevil in the courtroom on live television, which is absolutely insane. I mean, when Fisk started threatening to ruin his life through revealing his identity, I saw this coming, but it was still such an insane and cool move. And through this reveal and some other evidence presented by him and Kirsten, Matt provides enough evidence to charge Fisk with some crimes and get Karen's case dismissed, making for a massive win. This entire trial was so fun to watch, and I enjoyed it so much. Afterwards, the governor and the attorney general offer Fisk a deal, asking him to leave New York forever to get all of his charges dropped, which he stupidly refuses. Then, Bullseye tries to assassinate Fisk and shoots Buck instead, putting the courthouse on lockdown. A bunch of protesters are inspired by BB to gather outside the courthouse along with several NYPD officers, including Cherry and Brett Mahoney. The task force is blocking the building, and Powell, the worst one of them all in the face of the task force, tries to get another agent, Cole North, to kill Cherry. But thankfully, Cole has a change of heart and knocks out Powell, which was so deserved. Cole also lets the protesters into the courthouse, where they eventually make their way to Fisk, creating an awesome dual hallway fight with Fisk killing a bunch of protesters while Matt and Jessica, who was also there, fight a bunch of task force agents. I love this fight so much, and it was so crazy to just see Fisk go absolutely insane on these protesters. Eventually, everyone makes it to the front of the courthouse, where a bunch of protesters push Fisk down to the ground and start beating him up like crazy, which was fully deserved. Honestly, Fisk deserved much more than that. But Matt, Jessica, and Karen stop them because of Matt's morals, and Matt convinces Fisk to take the deal. Which, it's absolutely crazy that Fisk still gets the deal after killing at least 20 protesters, but he just ends up on a beach that he and Vanessa had previously been to. And that was genuinely my only complaint about this episode, because it was so cool otherwise. Afterwards, Matt is arrested and goes to prison for Daredevil's crimes, which we already knew was going to happen because Mike Coulter leaked it on Instagram. Speaking of, I've been so excited to see Luke Cage and Iron Fist come back in Season 3, but Luke actually appears right at the end of this episode in a scene with Jessica! I was so shocked and so happy to see him here. It was so unexpected and so cool. I loved it. And at the same time, Ellison returns from the Netflix show and gives BB a job at the Bulletin! Yes! We also see Heather put on Muse's mask, and I hate both Heather and Muse, and really don't want to see more of either of them. So Heather becoming Lady Muse was not a good moment. But this episode was absolutely awesome. And with that, that's the end of Season 2 of Daredevil Born Again. I loved this season, even if it wasn't as great at the start, so I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. I'm so excited for Season 3, and thank you for watching this review.